Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, again, let's go over the market as usual, talk about what happened, what we can expect for the remainder of the week. So far, it's been quite a, interesting week to say the least. Fairly volatile. It's not as volatile as the VIX is suggesting, in all honesty. At least it doesn't feel like it to me. But yeah, let's go over the market. Let's see what happens, what we can expect going into AI Day being on Friday, which I am very excited for. I cannot wait to see what Tesla does there. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if you maybe have a run into AI Day and there's just a sell-off after. Hard to say, but I'll go over a few things that I'm noticing. We're in an extremely difficult spot here. Let's just say that. I personally think it's an extremely difficult spot because, quite honestly, you can go up or down from here. But I think that the move up or down could be pretty substantial from here, which is why it's if you guess wrong, it can be pretty painful. Let's just say that. So anyways, let's just go over the market. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button, guys. Let's start the party. So Tesla ending the day up 2.54%, which, like I said yesterday, I was slightly more bullish than bearish. And we did bounce off of the level I talked about. We didn't go further down first. So I said we can either bounce from this level or we can go further down a little bit and then bounce. We clearly bounced from the level of yesterday, which is great. We didn't gap fill, unfortunately, not that I'm aware of at least. Yeah, we did not gap fill yesterday's close at 276. Which is a little unfortunate, but not the biggest problem, I guess. I do think we'll eventually gap fill it. But yeah, so we essentially bounced from the level I mentioned yesterday, which is, overall not too bad. We didn't go lower. And Tesla also, on top of that, is severely outperforming the market. The market was essentially flat. SPY was even red, 0.25%. QQQ was essentially flat. Tesla being up 2.5% is, quite an outperformance, right? Compared to the market itself, which is good. However, there's the thing that makes this really annoying is the fact that you would think that Tesla outperforming the market like this is great, and it is, I guess. It's fine. The issue is how much longer can it do it? Because if you look at the market itself, right, the QQQ, the SPY, which Tesla usually is quite affected by it, more than it is recently, let's just say that. Just a massive downtrend, right? Massive downtrend. While Tesla, yeah, sure, it had this little bit of a downtrend, but nowhere near as severe as this, right? Based on where these guys are at right now, Tesla should be easily, this right here, where Tesla was at 270, was essentially the SPY kind of dropping to this area, the QQQ dropping to this area, and now they dropped substantially lower, and Tesla is essentially actually higher than that, right? Normally, if Tesla was following them, it would have probably gap filled this, let's be honest here at this point. It would have been around 250, but it's nowhere near 250. It's all the way up at 283, which I guess is a good thing, but it also makes me wonder is it though? Is it a good thing? You know what I mean? It's so hard to say. So there's a few things I want to talk about. There's a bunch of things that are suggesting bullish and bearishness, which is why I said it's an extremely difficult spot we're in. But let's just go over everything. I'll let you guys make your final decisions, what you think of it, of course. I guess I'll give you my 2 cents on my kind of consensus, if you will, as well. But ultimately, let's talk about it. So we'll start with the bullish stuff first, because I'm sure people want to be more bullish than bearish on Tesla, which, don't get me wrong, as do I. It's just hard to avoid some things happening right now. So let's talk about the bullish stuff first. Pretty much the main bullish thing, number one, is the fact that the RSIs are starting to look a lot better, right? So if you go over to the 15-minute chart and stuff like that, it's not showing too much, unfortunately, right? The 15-minute, the shorter time frames are just essentially following the chart, right? They're not really showing anything too crazy or too wild. I guess you can say, if anything, it's looking a little bit not as great because it's, technically ending at the same spot as it did here, that the RSI is a bit lower. But that's just a short time frame. However, on the longer time frame, those bullish divergences I was talking about yesterday are starting to slowly develop, which is good. And what I mean by that is the fact that, it's not fully developing, but it's starting to become a little more clear, which is good. And essentially what I mean by that is the fact that, one example here, let's say in the 2 hour, as you can see, we went up all the way here, came down. Tesla pretty much went up to a slightly lower level than it was here. However, the RSI is almost at the exact same level, which is a good sign. And on top of that, if you want to compare that to these levels up here, back when Tesla was trading somewhere around this 288 to 290 area, the RSI was sitting around 35. Now we're obviously trading around 283, not substantially lower on the stock itself. The price itself, right? It's only 5-ish points lower, 5 to 6 points lower, something like that, give or take. However, the RSI overall is ultimately higher than this level, which is good. That's pretty much a bullish divergence being set up, which so far, so good, right? And as you keep going on the longer time frames, it becomes a bit more obvious, right? Same example here. You can see as Tesla was trading at these two levels up here, the RSI was sitting again at 40 43 and pretty much 42 respectively, roughly, these two levels right here, right where it closed. Tesla, of course, closing up at these levels over here, and it's looking like the RSI is essentially at the exact same level, if not arguably higher, right? So it's looking like the bullish divergences are really starting to form. However, usually what you want to see with these bullish divergences to really truly form is what you want to see is Tesla fall. Again, this is actually a bullish setup, believe it or not. However, what you'd ideally want to see to really solidify this is the fact that you'd want to see Tesla actually fall lower, even lower than this. Like you'd want to see it fall to 267, between there to 262, let's say. Somewhere around this level ideally is where you would want it to fall. And then you'd want to see these RSIs fall nowhere near to these lows, right? You'd want to see it fall like halfway, let's say, even though the stock made a lower low. That right there would be like the chef's kiss, if you will. That would be like perfect. That would be exactly what I would want to see. And then I'll be like, man, this bounce is looking fantastic. Like I really think it's about to happen. So that overall is the bullish aspect in my opinion. I do think that that's going to happen, and I do think that's going to be looking quite good. It's just a matter of, will it actually happen, right? Really hard to say. Now, that's essentially the bullish part of it, right? Slightly less bullish than bearish, slightly less bullish than bearish. I am slightly more bearish now after today's movements because, again, we got a 2.5% movement on a red market day, which normally sounds bullish, but I personally think it's a little bit more bearish because I also just kind of makes me wonder just how much steam is Tesla holding up right now in that pot? Remember that kind of example I used? It just feels like there's a lot of steam in the pot and it just feels like it needs to burst because it's holding fantastically relative to the market. The market is plummeting while Tesla is essentially just going sideways, if not even up, right? Which is fantastic for now, but it can only do that for so long, right? Eventually it will play catch up. It's just a matter of when. Exact same scenario when I was talking about up here, I was saying the exact same thing up here. Eventually it'll play catch up, which it did, just a matter of when, not if. And I really think that the same thing is happening. However, to kind of throw that out of the window and not to use this weird speculation of like, oh, it should catch up to the market, blah, blah, blah. Let's use actual technical patterns and analysis to figure out whether or not that's going to happen. So there's two things that happened today that are fairly bearish. Number one, we gap filled to this gap over here at 288.50, right? Not only do we gap fill, but we got a double rejection on the 1 hour. Two candles pretty much went up twice to move past it, got rejected twice, and essentially got slapped back down, right? That's not good. Number two, we are setting up just an absolute textbook bear flag. It is a bit of a weird one though in some aspects, and I'll explain that, but essentially we are setting up a bear flag, right? From the swing high from up here all the way down here, and now we're setting up the flag. This is the pole, this is the actual move itself, and this is essentially what it is, right? You can either say it's all the way from up here, or you can talk about here, really. I mean, either way, it's a bear flag regardless, right? It just depends on how far down it'll go from here. But nonetheless, it is a bear flag being set up, right? It is what it is. And it did break down under it and then kind of went back into the flag as well, which is the part that I kind of find confusing, as you can see. So essentially went for a 1, 2, 3, 4 touch point, 5 breakdown, which would have been the classic. And then somehow it actually went back into the damn flag, which is why it's making it so confusing, because normally what I would have expected, and it was actually doing this initially, is a breakdown out of the flag, come up, retest, fail, which it looked like it was going to do right here, and then make its way down and play out the flag. Instead, somehow, I guess with the market starting to rally over here as well, Tesla rallied a bit with the market, and it somehow actually ended back in the bear flag, right? So that's kind of confusing. I'm not going to lie, that does make things a little bit more complicated. But nonetheless, regardless, I personally believe that this might be a bull trap. We'll see, of course. The SPY closing is, not the most convincing thing in the world because it closed underneath these levels over here, where it's like, it was a lot of support at these levels right here, this 363.3-ish area to 5, this general level, and it tried to close above it, but then it obviously ended up getting smacked right back down and essentially closed right at resistance, right? That's not really good. Same with the QQQ, right? Similar concept-ish. So it's not looking the most fantastic thing in the entire world. The VIX is still looking quite bullish, though it does look like it wants to come down to retest this overall breakout, a little more better, I guess. Not this like little mini retest. Once I could get a true retest, which can come during the October rally that I still think will happen. But we'll see, of course. That's kind of what I'm expecting, and then that's when the pain will really start once that happens, and once the VIX gets an actual retest of that level I talked about there on the red line sometime in October. That's kind of what I'm expecting. However, with that being said and done, Tesla, it's its own beast. So just because the market might do one thing doesn't mean Tesla will do the exact same thing as we've seen recently. So with that being said and done, The issue and the bearish stuff I see is, number one, is just an absolute textbook bear flag. This is just, it's just a textbook bear flag that I personally don't see why it wouldn't play out. Technically, it doesn't have to. There is a possibility that it doesn't. I just don't see why it wouldn't, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Personally, what I would want to see in the most ideal scenario, and the scenario that I would love to see happen and play out, which means it probably won't because the market's never that easy or simple. However, in a ideal world, I would love to see Tesla break down out of this bear flag, come all the way down to this around general level over here, somewhere around this level. It could just bounce off to 266, could come down all the way to 262, whatever, I don't care. Somewhere around this level, I would love to see Tesla come down. I'd buy shares, I would sell puts, not financial advice, make your own decisions. And I would personally play the bounce out of this. Somewhere around this general level is exactly where I would personally want to play the October rally, which I still think we're going to get. We'll see, of course, though, right? We'll see, of course. Nothing is guaranteed. I want to make that very clear. On top of that, there is another thing that's going to be playing out potentially that is also a potential bearish pattern, which is going to be an inverted cup and handle, where essentially what you have in an actual bullish cup and handle is you have like literally a cup. It's essentially like a massive U, and then you have the handle, which becomes like a bear flag, or sorry, a bull flag, and then it plays out to the north. Obviously, a bearish version is the literal opposite. In this case, we have an upside down U, or essentially an upside down cup, which looks something like this. And now, ideally, it would have been good if it came down to this 267. It didn't, but close enough. And now we have the handle playing out, which is essentially this bear flag. And pretty much the idea is that it breaks down from here, right? So what you can do is you can essentially draw something like this. Measure the top from the bottom, which ends up being somewhere along the lines of, I guess it's just a rough example, right? 40 points down, right? So you can essentially assume that from the breakdown of this, we will go down about 40 points. Now, will that happen exactly? I don't think we'll go down that low, personally. I don't think we'll come down that low. We could. It's not impossible. That would actually pretty much be exactly at this gap fill over here. That is definitely a possibility right here, right? It would pretty much come down to fill this gap if this were to play out roughly that way. Doesn't mean it has to, but that's just an example. But the point is the fact that I personally still believe that this bear flag will play out. There's a chance it doesn't. I still have some bullish positions that I'm just going to hold. Most of them, which I actually de-risked when we ran up over here, and I ended up entering one more weekly sold put, just kind of to have like a runner, if that makes sense. But I still have my longer dated sold puts for late October and one in November, but they're like pretty much all the way down here, which is my buy zone for now regardless, right? So I'm okay with that. Like, I don't really care too much. Like, I'll hold it, whatever, I don't mind buying shares here anyways, right? It's fine. But that's essentially what I'm seeing at the very moment. So we'll see what happens. Again, it's an extremely confusing spot that we're in because, again, there's some bullish scenarios. Like, we have some, bullish divergences setting up, though, to be fair, to really set them up, a drop actually, especially a drop lower, would be quite ideal to really truly set up this bullish divergence. I still think that would happen or should happen. And that would really make it, solidify the rally coming up, in my opinion, and I would love to see that. The market itself does look a little bit weak. It does look like it still isn't really fully done dropping yet, but you never really know for sure. As you can see over here on the 1 hour, for instance, another example, right? Just a lot of selling pressure as we come up to these kind of resistance levels. As you can see, buying pressure here, and now, of course, old support became new resistance, and now it, of course, is acting as such. So that's essentially what I'm seeing, guys. Let me know what you think down below. Overall, I think there's a bit more bearish things setting up than bullish after today's movements. Ultimately, the main thing being, of course, this bear flag being set up, the potential inverted cup and handle being set up as well. So we'll see what happens. We'll see where that takes us. But ultimately, my overall consensus is the fact that ideally what I'd want to see is this bear flag to play out. I'd want to see it drop to somewhere around this kind of 267 to 256, I guess, level. Anywhere in this range, I personally think will be the buy area, the accumulation area for the October rally. Just my opinion, could be completely wrong, not financial advice, make your own decisions. But that's it for this video, guys. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.